The first day of the invasion had shaken the world, but it had also awakened something deep in humanity. Fear was still present in every corner of the earth, yet beside that fear stood determination. The Zirans thought they had crushed the will of humans. Instead, they had given humanity a single goal: to survive and to fight back. Across cities and villages, people began to adapt. At first, it was small things. Soldiers adjusted their formations, learning how to spread out to avoid the alien plasma fire. Civilians built barricades out of cars, buses, and broken walls. Engineers looked at captured alien weapons, their eyes searching for weaknesses. The Zirans had superior strength and technology, but humans had something far greater: the ability to learn quickly, to adapt to the unexpected, and to use every resource around them. In the mountains of Afghanistan, a group of villagers discovered that the plasma rifles of the Zirans overheated when fired too quickly. They learned to wait for the moment when the weapons glowed red, then attacked with rifles and explosives. In the forests of South America, resistance fighters lured alien patrols into traps. They used vines, pits, and even fires to confuse and slow down the hunters. The Zirans, built for direct combat, were caught off guard by the cunning of their prey. In the streets of Europe, engineers and mechanics worked day and night to take apart captured alien devices. They discovered how to reroute the energy cells, turning them into makeshift bombs. Others learned how to jam the invaders' communications with radio waves. Every day, humans became stronger. Every fight taught them something new. General Kareth watched the battles with growing frustration. His warriors were fierce, but they were losing control of the hunt. Reports told of ambushes, traps, and strange human tactics. The humans did not fight in the way the Zirans expected. They did not face the hunters in single combat. Instead, they fought as groups, as families, as entire nations standing side by side. "This is not prey behavior," one commander growled. "This is something else. They use their weakness as strength." Kareth's eyes burned with anger, but inside a shadow of doubt formed. He had seen prey fight before. He had crushed armies with ease, but this was different. On Earth, humanity's unity grew stronger each day. Nations that had once argued and mistrusted each other now stood shoulder to shoulder. In Washington, D.C., leaders spoke directly with officials in Moscow, Beijing, and New Delhi. Old rivalries were pushed aside. Every nation shared knowledge and resources. Scientists exchanged data across borders without hesitation. Militaries shared strategies and weapons. For the first time in history, the whole world worked as one. In hidden bunkers, scientists studied alien armor. They discovered weak points in the plates, thin areas near the joints. Soldiers were trained to aim for those points. In workshops, mechanics turned construction machines into war machines. Bulldozers became battering rams. Trucks became mobile shields. And drones were modified to drop explosives. In universities, students worked with professors to decode the invaders' language. If they could understand how the Zirans spoke to each other, perhaps they could disrupt their strategies. The world was bleeding, but it was not broken. Humanity was turning pain into strength. In the deserts of Africa, a great battle showed just how far humans had come. A fleet of Ziran skimmers swept across the sands, their plasma cannons firing at villages. But waiting for them was a line of human defenders armed with stolen weapons and homemade traps. As the skimmers advanced, explosions tore through the sand. Hidden mines built from captured alien energy cells ripped into the hunters' vehicles. When the Zirans tried to retreat, they found their communications jammed by simple radio towers the villagers had built. Surrounded and disoriented, the hunters fell under a storm of bullets, arrows, and fire. For the first time, a Ziran unit was not only defeated but completely destroyed. The news spread across the world like lightning. Humanity had won a battle. In the ruins of Tokyo, a young scientist named Aiko stood before a group of soldiers. She held up a small device built from scraps of alien machinery. "This," she said, "can block their targeting sensors. It will not last long, but it will give you a chance to strike first." The soldiers nodded, taking the devices with grim smiles. They were tired, but their eyes were fierce. Every new invention, every new strategy gave them hope. The Zirans, meanwhile, began to argue among themselves. Their pride was cracking. "They should be broken by now," one officer hissed aboard the flagship. "Why do they resist?" Kareth's voice was heavy. "Because they are not prey. They are something else. They fight not only for survival but for each other. That is their strength. Another officer snarled. Then we must crush them harder. Burn their cities to ash. Show them despair. Karith turned his cold eyes toward him. We have tried. Still, they rise. Still, they fight. No other species has done this. For the first time in Ziran history, silence filled the War Council. None of them had answers. None of them wanted to admit what they feared, that their so-called prey might be stronger than they were. On Earth, resistance leaders gathered in secret locations. Soldiers, scientists, doctors, and ordinary citizens all stood together. They shared stories of battles won and lost, of bravery and sacrifice. One commander spoke to his people before sending them into the field. Remember this, we are not fighting for glory. We are not fighting for conquest. We are fighting for home, for family, for each other. That is why we will win. The words echoed across the resistance. Humans were not united by power or greed. They were united by love for their planet and for one another. That was something the hunters could never understand. In a ruined street in Paris, a group of civilians built a trap from broken cars. They lured a Ziran patrol into the narrow lane, then detonated the vehicles, burying the hunters in fire and rubble. In the mountains of South Korea, soldiers used drones to distract the enemy, leading them into minefields. In the jungles of the Philippines, villagers used the cover of the trees to strike and vanish before the Zirans could react. Everywhere, humans proved again and again that they would not bow down. General Karith watched the growing resistance and realized something dark. The Zirans had believed they were the strongest hunters in the galaxy. But these humans were hunters too. They hunted with their minds, with their teamwork, and with their unbreakable spirit. They are learning too quickly, Karith muttered. Every day they grow stronger. Every battle they gain new knowledge. If this continues... He stopped, unwilling to finish the thought. But he knew the truth. If this continued, the hunters might become the hunted. The third week of the invasion ended with the Earth scarred but alive. Smoke rose from ruined cities, but beneath that smoke, humanity's fire burned brighter than ever. The Zirans had expected easy victory. Instead, they found themselves dragged into a war they did not understand. The humans were not just surviving, they were adapting. And in adaptation, humanity found its greatest weapon. The galaxy's deadliest predators had met their first true rival, and the war for Earth had only begun. The first month of the invasion had changed everything. The Zirans had expected humans to be easy prey. Instead, they had found a species that adapted quickly, fought fiercely, and refused to give up. Every day humanity learned, innovated, and struck back. And now the humans were ready to turn the tide. Across the globe, leaders and scientists worked together as never before. Old rivalries and conflicts were forgotten in the face of a common enemy. Nations that had once argued over borders now shared intelligence, weapons, and strategies. Every city, town, and village became a part of a larger network of resistance. In the deserts of the Middle East, engineers studied captured Ziran ships. They discovered the weaknesses in the armor, how energy cells could be rerouted, and how the alien weapons worked. In Tokyo, students designed drones to carry explosives and relay information. In London, soldiers practiced precision strikes against alien patrols, learning to hit the weak spots in Ziran armor. Every human was learning something new, and every lesson made the next attack stronger. The first major counterattack began in the skies above the Pacific Ocean. Human pilots, trained in fighter jets and modified alien craft, flew in formation with drones and unmanned ships. They attacked a group of Ziran vessels patrolling the ocean, using coordinated strikes to disable engines and jam communications. The Zirans were taken aback. Their ships were fast and powerful, but humans were unpredictable. They did not fight in the straightforward way the hunters expected. Humans used speed, surprise, and clever tricks. Explosions tore through the Ziran fleet, forcing several ships to retreat. For the first time, a battle did not end in the hunters' favor. The humans had proven that they could strike not just on the ground, but in the skies as well. On the ground, the resistance had grown into a global army. Civilians became fighters, farmers became engineers, scientists became strategists. Every human contribution mattered, and every victory, no matter how small, built morale. In the ruins of Berlin, a group of young engineers set up a network of energy traps. They used captured alien power cells to electrify streets and alleyways. When Xiran patrols entered the city, the traps activated, disabling their armor and forcing them to retreat. In the jungles of Brazil, villagers guided alien patrols into river traps. Logs, vines, and nets combined with explosives brought down entire squads of hunters. In New York, firefighters and construction workers used cranes, rubble, and fire to slow the aliens' advance. They blocked streets, trapped invaders, and created choke points where human fighters could strike effectively. Everywhere the Xirans moved, humans had prepared for them. The hunters had assumed Earth would fall quickly, but now they were trapped in a war of wits and skill they had not anticipated. General Karith convened his council aboard the flagship. The invaders had suffered significant losses in the past weeks, and their frustration was growing. They should not be able to resist so well. One officer growled. They are primitive. Their weapons are weak. They should be gone. Karith's eyes were cold but thoughtful. They are not what we expected. Every day they learn. Every day they grow stronger. They do not fight like prey. They fight like hunters. Another officer hissed. Then we must burn the cities, crush the humans until they are nothing. Karith shook his head. We cannot win by force alone. They adapt too quickly. The harder we strike, the faster they learn. We must find another way. But I fear time is against us. For the first time in centuries, the Xirans felt real uncertainty. The humans had become more than just a nuisance, they were a threat. In Paris, a young woman named Elise led a team of civilians and soldiers to take down a Xiran patrol. They had studied the alien armor, learned its weak points, and prepared a trap. As the patrol entered a narrow street, Elise and her team triggered explosive charges hidden beneath the pavement. The Xirans roared in shock as their vehicles were thrown into the air. Soldiers fired at the stunned hunters, aiming for the joints and thin plates in their armor. One hunter tried to retreat, but humans blocked every exit. They moved with coordination, covering each other, ensuring that every strike counted. By the end of the fight, the hunters lay defeated, their numbers severely reduced. Elise looked around at her team, exhaustion and pride written on their faces. We did it, she said quietly. We fought them, and we won. Meanwhile, in the skies above Earth, human pilots carried out daring attacks on Xiran supply lines. They learned the patterns of alien movements, studied their patrol routines, and struck at the perfect moment. Every destroyed supply ship weakened the invaders, forcing them to ration energy and weapons. Human scientists also hacked alien communications. By understanding the Xiran language, they could anticipate attacks, intercept orders, and even create false messages to confuse the enemy. The hunters were skilled, but humans were clever. The tide was turning. In Africa, a major confrontation unfolded in the savannah. Xiran squads attempted to sweep through a large human settlement, expecting easy prey. But humans had anticipated the attack. They had dug trenches, set traps, and stationed hidden snipers. As the hunters advanced, they were slowed by barricades, forced into kill zones, and struck by coordinated fire. One hunter, caught in a net trap, struggled to break free as humans approached with makeshift weapons. Every move the Xirans made was predicted. Every attack met resistance. By the end of the day, humans had not only defended their settlement, they had inflicted heavy casualties on the hunters. For the first time, Xiran patrols began to retreat in fear. They had underestimated the humans' ability to plan, coordinate, and fight back with intelligence and courage. Back on the flagship, General Karith stared at the holomap showing the losses across Earth. He had always believed in the Xirans' superiority, but now reality weighed heavily on him. These humans are not prey, he said to himself. They are predators in their own way. We cannot control them. We cannot predict them, and they will not stop. The other officers murmured in agreement, though none wanted to admit it aloud. The pride of the hunters had been shaken, and the first cracks of doubt spread through the fleet. On Earth, the humans were not content to defend. They began striking back with purpose. Using captured alien technology, they launched raids against supply depots, command centers, and even some ships still in orbit. The first orbit-to-ground assault was carried out by a team of human engineers and pilots who had studied alien flight patterns. They used stolen alien vessels, modified with human technology, to attack a landing craft carrying Xiran warriors. The mission was a success. The craft was destroyed before it reached the surface, and the Xirans inside had no chance to retaliate. News of the victory spread quickly, boosting morale worldwide. Humanity had shown that it could fight not only on land but also in the skies, against an enemy they had once thought unbeatable. By the second month of the invasion, the balance had shifted. Humans had learned to coordinate globally, to use strategy over brute force, and to strike with intelligence rather than recklessness. The Xerans were no longer hunters in total control. They had become cautious, fearful, and uncertain. Each battle was now a test, and humans were winning more often than not. On Earth, the resistance leaders met in secret conferences, sharing tactics and lessons learned. They developed coordinated global attacks, moving like a single organism against the invaders. The planet itself had become a weapon in human hands. Every victory, every clever tactic, every trap built reinforced one undeniable truth: the humans were capable of defeating the galaxy's deadliest predators. As the month ended, General Karith faced a harsh reality. The humans were not only surviving, they were adapting, learning, and taking the fight to him. They should be gone by now, one officer whispered, fear in his voice. Karith's cold eyes glimmered with something rarely seen in a Xeran leader: respect. They are not prey. They are hunters, and they will not stop until we are defeated. For the first time, the invaders understood that Earth was not just a world to conquer. It was a battlefield where humans would determine their own destiny. The hunters had underestimated the humans, and now humanity was ready to turn the tide. The next chapter of the war would decide not only the fate of Earth but the place of humanity in the galaxy. The war for Earth had reached its peak. What began as a hunt had turned into a battle for survival, and now humans were no longer merely defending. They were hunting back. The Xerans, the galaxy's deadliest predators, had made a critical mistake. They had underestimated humans, and that mistake would cost them everything. Across the planet, humans moved like a single organism, their unity forged through fire and blood. Soldiers, scientists, engineers, and civilians worked together seamlessly. Communication networks relayed real-time updates from city to city. Drone squads scouted alien positions, reporting weaknesses. Guerrilla teams struck quickly and disappeared, leaving confusion in their wake. Every corner of Earth had become a battlefield, but a battlefield where humans had the advantage. Above the Pacific Ocean, a fleet of Xeran warships approached a major human stronghold in San Francisco. They had expected an easy victory. Instead, they were met with an orchestrated assault that combined human ingenuity and captured alien technology. A fleet of modified human fighters, equipped with stolen Xeran energy weapons, moved in perfect formation. Drones swarmed the alien vessels, feeding data to the pilots. Explosive traps disguised as debris detonated just as the Xerans approached. Energy beams struck with precision, tearing into hulls and disabling engines. For the first time, Xeran vessels were being destroyed faster than reinforcements could arrive. The hunters had become the hunted in the skies above Earth. On the ground, humans executed a series of coordinated attacks in cities around the globe. In New York, teams of engineers rigged abandoned skyscrapers to collapse in controlled ways, crushing alien squads in their path. In Cairo, civilians had learned to use the narrow streets to their advantage, creating kill zones where Xerans could be trapped and eliminated. In the jungles of Southeast Asia, hunters fell into nets, pits, and hidden explosives set by villagers who had studied the invaders' every move. Each victory was not only strategic but symbolic. Humans were sending a message: Earth would not be conquered. They fought not just for survival but for pride, home, and future generations. General Karith paced the floor of the flagship, his claws tapping a rhythm of frustration. His fleet had taken heavy losses. Their confidence was shattered. Reports of ambushes, destroyed ships, and lost squads filled his screens. They adapt too quickly, he growled. Every attack we make, they counter it. Every weakness we exploit, they learn within hours. How can this be? A younger officer hesitated before speaking. They are different. Not like other species we have hunted. They are not prey. They think, they plan, they fight for each other. That is why we fail. Karith's eyes narrowed. Then we have underestimated them. The stronger prey becomes, the more dangerous it is. We must retreat, regroup, and consider a new plan. But deep down he feared it might already be too late. In Europe, a massive operation unfolded. Human forces had intercepted Xeran reinforcements moving toward London. Using a combination of stealth, drones, and repurposed alien ships, they struck first, destroying key command units before the invaders could respond. In the chaos, a group of human engineers hacked into alien ship controls, rerouting power to critical systems. Ships overloaded, their weapons misfiring, and some even collided in confusion. The humans moved with precision, their attacks timed perfectly to maximize the Zirans' losses. It was a turning point. Humans were no longer reacting. They were directing the flow of battle. The hunters, once the apex predators, were now being stalked. In South America, a young leader named Diego guided his team through dense jungle terrain. They had studied the Zirans for weeks, learning their patrol patterns and attack styles. Using this knowledge, they set a trap for an elite alien squad. Logs, vines, and camouflaged pits created obstacles that slowed the hunters. Explosives detonated from hidden positions, taking down key members of the squad. The remaining Zirans panicked as human fighters attacked from all sides, hitting weak points in their armor and forcing a retreat. Diego smiled, though exhausted. They thought they were hunting us. They are not ready for the truth. We hunt them too. His words reflected the sentiment spreading across Earth. Every human had learned the lesson. Courage, intelligence, and unity could defeat even the deadliest foe. As the days passed, the humans' success continued. They captured alien technology, learned to operate Ziran ships, and even developed weapons that combined human and alien engineering. Energy cannons powered by both human ingenuity and Ziran energy cells tore through invaders' armor. Resistance groups coordinated global strikes, striking multiple Ziran targets at the same time. Each victory weakened the invaders' morale, while human confidence soared. News of defeated Ziran squads spread quickly. Across the galaxy, whispers began. Humans were not just survivors, they were deadly predators. On the Ziran flagship, General Kareth convened a council of war. The losses were staggering. Ships, squads, and commanders had been destroyed or captured. Even elite hunters were falling. They should have fallen long ago, one officer said bitterly. We have the strength, the weapons. Yet we lose. Kareth's eyes were cold, but his voice carried a weight of realization. We did not account for their will, their intelligence, their unity. This species is not prey. It is a force, and we have underestimated it. The council fell silent. For the first time in millennia, the Zirans understood fear. They were facing a species that could learn, adapt, and overcome the hunter's might. In the skies above Africa, a massive ambush unfolded. Ziran ships moved in formation, intending to crush a human stronghold. But humans had prepared. Using hacked alien sensors, they detected every movement, coordinated strikes, and set traps along the route. Explosions erupted as ships entered designated zones. Drones struck engines while humans on the ground targeted exposed armor joints. Communications were jammed, leaving the hunters disoriented. One by one, the ships were destroyed or forced to retreat. By nightfall, humans had not only defended the stronghold, they had destroyed a significant portion of the Ziran fleet in the region. The hunters were being hunted. In orbit, a group of human pilots carried out a daring assault on the Ziran command ship. Using alien ships they had captured and modified, they infiltrated the flagship's defenses. The battle was fierce, with lasers and plasma fire tearing through space. But human ingenuity prevailed. Inside the command ship, sabotage disrupted energy systems, disabled weapons, and created chaos among the hunters. Kareth watched as his fleet struggled, realizing that the humans had turned the galaxy itself into a weapon against them. The apex predators were now fighting for survival, and their confidence was gone. Back on Earth, humans celebrated each victory, but they knew the war was not over. Cities were damaged, lives were lost, and the planet bore the scars of conflict. Yet amidst the destruction, humanity had proven itself in ways no species had before. From the ashes, humans rose stronger. Engineers rebuilt cities with defenses. Scientists continued to study alien technology. Soldiers trained and adapted. Civilians joined the resistance, contributing in any way they could. Every person played a role in turning the tide. Finally, after weeks of relentless fighting, the last major Ziran assault was repelled. Their forces, battered and demoralized, retreated into space. Ships limped away, some in flames, some barely operational. For the first time in history, the Zirans had tasted defeat. The hunters who had never known fear now knew it intimately. They had attacked Earth expecting an easy hunt, but they had met a species they could not control. A species that could fight, adapt, and strike back with precision. A species that refused to be conquered. Karith, wounded and humiliated, looked out over the battlefield from his remaining ship. He saw humans helping each other, rebuilding and preparing for the possibility of future attacks. In his heart, he understood a truth he could not deny. These humans were predators too, perhaps even stronger than the Zirans in ways they had never understood. Across the galaxy, word spread among other alien civilizations. The hunters who had ruled fearlessly were now wary. Stories circulated of the humans who had turned Earth into a fortress, of civilians who became warriors, and of the species that had fought back when defeat seemed certain. No one would ever underestimate humanity again. On Earth, the skies cleared, smoke rising from battlefields, but the world still alive. Survivors walked among the ruins, carrying the wounded, salvaging supplies, and planning for the future. Leaders spoke of unity, scientists spoke of innovation, and soldiers spoke of courage. Humanity had faced the deadliest predators in the universe and survived. Not only had they survived, but they had prevailed. They had proven that strength was not only in weapons or claws, but in will, intelligence, and unity. The Zirans had learned the hard way that hunting humans was a mistake. Humans were not prey, they were predators. And now, the galaxy knew it. The war was over, at least for now, but humanity's story had changed forever. They had faced the impossible, adapted, and overcome. The blue planet that once seemed fragile had shown the universe that humans were a force to be reckoned with. For the first time in history, the apex predators had met their match and lost. The humans of Earth had won, not by chance, not by luck, but by courage, intelligence, and unity. The galaxy would never forget the lesson of Earth. Humans were hunters. The galaxy had never known silence until the day the humans left. For centuries, humans had been everywhere. Their ships crossed the stars, their voices filled council chambers, and their hands reached out to help in places where others would not go. They were the first to offer aid when disasters struck, the first to suggest peace when enemies glared at each other across the table, and the first to risk their lives in the unknown. But the galaxy had grown tired of them. Many species respected human bravery, yet others saw it as recklessness. Many admired their creativity, but others whispered that it was dangerous unpredictability. Slowly, year by year, those whispers became louder, and in the end, the Galactic Council made a decision that changed everything. The Council passed a decree. Humans would no longer be allowed to lead missions of importance. They were told they could stay in the galaxy, but they would have to step back, no longer at the center of exploration or diplomacy. The message was wrapped in careful words: to maintain balance, to reduce risk, to encourage other species to grow. But humans heard the truth behind the lines. They were not wanted. At first, there was shock. The human ambassadors argued, their voices steady but filled with disbelief. They reminded the council of the battles they had fought side by side. They spoke of the colonies they had saved, the treaties they had written, the friendships they had formed. But the chamber was cold. Most of the other ambassadors looked away. Some even nodded in agreement with the decree. The decision was final, and so humanity made a choice of its own. If the galaxy did not want them, they would not remain. Not halfway, not in the shadows, not with clipped wings. They would walk away completely. When the announcement came from Earth, it spread like fire through the stars. "We will withdraw from galactic affairs," the human envoy said in the council hall. His voice was calm, though his eyes carried the weight of generations. "Our fleets, our colonies, our ambassadors, our workers. We will bring them home. We will not stand in places where we are not respected. We will not stay where we are not trusted." There was no anger in his words. That made them heavier. The council chamber fell into silence. A few species shifted uneasily. Others stared straight ahead, pretending not to care. Some even allowed themselves small smiles, thinking the humans were overreacting. They believed that once Earth had cooled down, they would return quietly, eager for approval. But the humans kept their word. The departure began quickly. On colony worlds at the edge of alien space, human settlers packed their belongings, dismantled their equipment, and boarded ships bound for Earth. Entire communities vanished within weeks. Alien neighbors watched them go, surprised at the speed and unity with which humans acted. In trade hubs, human merchants closed their businesses. The markets, once bright with the energy of human bargaining, grew quieter. On diplomatic stations, human ambassadors gave polite farewells and left their offices empty. Even the fleets moved. Patrol ships that had long guarded trade routes returned to Earth space. Rescue vessels, famous for arriving first during emergencies, no longer answered distress calls. The galaxy watched in disbelief. Surely, many thought, humans would not leave completely. Surely they needed the galaxy as much as the galaxy needed them. Surely they would change their minds. But the humans did not change their minds. Life without humans seemed ordinary at first. In the council, alien ambassadors declared that balance had been restored. They said it was time for other species to rise, to take the roles humans had once dominated. Speeches were given, celebrations were held, and for a brief moment it seemed the decree had worked. But in the quiet corners of space, small problems began to grow. On a distant mining world, a reactor malfunctioned. In the past, a human emergency crew would have arrived within hours, using clever improvisations to stabilize the system. This time, the local engineers struggled. They followed procedure carefully, but when the unexpected happened, they had no answer. The reactor exploded, damaging half the colony. Elsewhere, two rival species met to discuss a border dispute. Without a human mediator to bridge their cultures, the talks broke down in anger. Old tensions returned, and fleets began to gather at the edges of space. Still, most leaders ignored these warning signs. They told themselves these were isolated incidents. After all, the galaxy was vast and problems were always bound to arise. Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity grew quiet but determined. The decision to withdraw had not been made lightly. Generations of humans had spilled their sweat and at times their blood among the stars. They had built friendships with countless species, shared knowledge, and worked to hold the galaxy together. To walk away hurt deeply. But humanity had dignity. If others could not see their value, they would not beg to prove it. Instead, they turned inward. They focused on their own colonies, their own fleets, their own future. The same creativity that had once gone into helping the galaxy was now directed toward their own advancement. They began building new technologies. They expanded their defenses. They reconnected with distant human settlements that had long been overlooked, while the galaxy demanded their attention. And though they did not say it aloud, a thought grew quietly in the hearts of many humans. One day, the galaxy will understand what it has lost. Back in the council, months passed. Alien leaders noted the absence of humans but continued with their agendas. The galaxy was large and there was always another crisis, another trade deal, another border to secure. But something had changed. The council chamber felt emptier without the human delegation. The debates dragged on longer, often ending without resolution. The air that had once been filled with human voices, firm, passionate, always searching for compromise, was now heavy with silence. Some species began to miss them, though they would not admit it. Others, more honest, whispered their concerns in private meetings. Perhaps we were too quick. Perhaps we should not have pushed them away. But pride held their tongues in public. To recall the decree would be to admit a mistake. And no one wanted to be the first to do that, and so the galaxy carried on, pretending nothing had changed. Yet far away, on the quiet blue planet called Earth, things had changed. Humanity had turned inward, yes, but not in defeat. They had chosen a path of patience, growth, and strength. They remembered the day they had walked away, and they remembered the looks on alien faces as they did. And though they no longer stood in the council halls, humanity still watched the stars. They knew the galaxy better than it knew itself. They knew the day would come when the others would finally realize what they had done. That day was not yet here, but it was coming. The first year without humans seemed calm. Trade ships still moved between stars. Ambassadors still gathered in the great council chambers, and fleets still patrolled the borders. Many leaders declared that nothing had been lost. They told their people that the galaxy was stronger now, more balanced, but beneath the surface things were changing. On a distant trade world named Kalora, two merchants argued over shipping lanes. Disputes between their species were not new, but in the past humans had always stood between them. Humans had a way of finding common ground, of speaking in simple words that both sides understood. This time, No humans were there. The argument grew louder. The merchants stormed out of the meeting. Soon after, patrol ships from both species began circling the trade lanes, warning the other side to stay away. Within weeks, shots were fired. A skirmish followed and dozens of ships were destroyed. Trade through that entire sector collapsed. The council called for calm, but their voices were weak. No mediator could cool the anger. Everyone remembered how humans would have spoken, firmly, calmly, with a strange mix of patience and determination. But remembering was not the same as having them there. The galaxy was beginning to feel the gap. In another corner of space, on the icy moon of Vareth, a mining colony suffered a terrible accident. A drill struck an unstable pocket of gas, releasing poisonous fumes into the tunnels. The miners panicked. The local security force tried to follow the emergency guide, but the gas spread too quickly. In the old days, a human rescue team would have been on the way, bringing clever machines, quick decisions, and a willingness to take risks to save lives. But no human ships came. The miners waited, hoping someone would arrive. By the time a neighboring alien fleet responded, it was too late. Half the colony had already perished. The tragedy spread across the news nets. Whispers followed. If humans were still here, would this have happened? In the Grand Council, cracks began to show. The sessions had always been noisy, but in the past, humans had often guided the noise into order. They had argued with passion, but also searched for compromise. They had turned fights into solutions. Now the council dragged on endlessly. Weeks passed with no decision on important matters. Ambassadors bickered, refusing to bend. Old rivalries returned. One ambassador from a species known for caution finally spoke the thought many tried to hide. "We have silenced the only voice that could bring us together," he said. "We thought humans were too bold, too unpredictable. But perhaps it was that boldness that kept us steady." The chamber grew silent, but no one dared agree aloud. Pride kept their mouths shut. In the marketplaces of the galaxy, things also began to change. Human merchants had always been strange. They bargained fiercely, laughed easily, and carried goods from every corner of the stars. They made trade lively. Without them, the markets grew colder. Deals still happened, but the energy was gone. Many alien traders missed the human way of business. Humans were fair but clever, always turning a profit but rarely leaving their partners feeling cheated. Now trade deals felt stiff and joyless. One alien shopkeeper sighed as he closed his stall early. "The humans would stay until midnight," he muttered. "They made us believe business was more than numbers. Now it is only numbers." Not everyone missed the humans. Some leaders felt relieved. They believed their species could finally rise without being overshadowed. They thought the absence of humans was a chance to shine. But even they soon learned that shining was harder without the strange spark humanity had carried. On the battlefield, alien fleets found themselves struggling. Humans had always fought differently. They were not the strongest, nor the fastest, nor the most heavily armed. But they were unpredictable. They would turn defeat into victory with a sudden trick, a desperate gamble, or a clever idea no one else would dare attempt. Without them, battles became slow and grinding. Victories were rare, losses heavier. Admirals began to whisper in private, "If only we had one human captain with us." Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity watched quietly. They saw the news of conflicts rising, of disasters poorly handled, of the council sinking into endless arguments. Some humans felt anger, others felt sadness, but most simply nodded. They had known this would happen. Humanity did not celebrate the galaxy's troubles, but neither did they rush back to fix them. They remembered the cold faces in the council chamber, the way their efforts had been dismissed. They remembered the decree that told them they were not wanted. Instead of returning, they focused on themselves. New cities rose on Earth's colonies. Human science leapt forward. Freed from the burden of holding the galaxy together, they had time to improve their own future. They built stronger fleets, smarter machines, and new technologies the galaxy had never seen. And yet, even as they worked, they kept watching the stars. Back in the wider galaxy, patience was wearing thin. A great famine struck the world of Talaris, caused by failed harvest machines. In the past, humans would have sent aid ships filled with food and engineers willing to risk themselves to repair the machines. This time, help came late. Millions suffered before relief finally arrived. Anger spread among the people. They remembered human aid convoys that had once seemed to appear before the first call for help was even sent. They cared, one alien said quietly. The humans cared in a way others do not. The galaxy had once thought humans were everywhere, too present, too loud. Now their absence was like a missing heartbeat. Trade slowed. Disputes grew sharper. Accidents turned to tragedies. Council debates dragged on without end. Fleets fought without guidance, and in every corner of the stars someone asked the same question. Where are the humans? The answer was simple. They were home. And the galaxy, though it had not yet admitted it aloud, was beginning to realize a terrible truth. It had wanted humans gone, and now, without them, everything was beginning to fall apart. The whispers grew louder. We must bring them back, some said. But how? Humanity had left with dignity. They had not slammed the door, they had simply walked away. But walking away made their absence feel heavier. It was not anger that kept them gone, but resolve. And the galaxy, for all its power, did not know how to call them back. For the first time in living memory, the stars felt colder. The galaxy had wanted silence. Now it had it, and the silence was unbearable.